is the worst case of helicopter parenting you have seen? Story 1. I knew a mother who kept her 5-year-old daughter in diapers when they went out of the house because she didn't want her using public restrooms because the girl sitting in her own was much better for her health, apparently. Story 2. The kid is about 9 years old, so like 3rd grade. I've known him since before he started school. His mom is an acquaintance of mine, and the kid himself has had classes with one of my kids who is the same age. She has forced herself into every activity and classroom that he's ever been in. She starts off volunteering in the classroom normally. Most teachers ask for a few hours 1 or 2 days a week of help in our school. But little by little, she shows up more often whether the teacher asked her to or not. Some teachers have told her to stop, but others just let it happen. She basically spends every day all day with him. Never gives him any space. She hovers over everything he does, and if it's not perfect, she fixes it. Pretty sure she's done his homework herself several times. Sometimes the teachers will send home an art project as homework, like a pumpkin to decorate in the fall or whatever. And as always looks like an adult did it alone. She never lets him face any uncomfortable situations or adversity. She got actually mad when one day she said to the 1st grade teacher's son woke up in a sad mood today. And the teacher answered he'll keep an eye on him, but I think he'll be okay. This was infuriating to her to the point where she vented to me about it. I had to ask her, but was he okay though? Yeah, he was. What was she expecting, you ask? She wanted the teacher to make a big fuss over him and give him special attention. She felt that the teacher didn't care, because she didn't fall all over herself to coddle him. Story 3. My wife, being a teacher, had to deal with this on a regular basis. Usually, she would have that parent do menial tasks so they would not bother the class. One parent became so overbearing, demanding to see lesson plans, making my wife take class time to re-explain subjects. My wife deliberately left a quiz out. This parent took the quiz and slipped her kid the answers. Knowing the kid was not a good student, my wife got the parent to fess up to taking the test and passing the answers. This went to the principal, and he banned her from the class. The parent made multiple complaints, even going to a district meeting. The school board held up the ban. Story 4. My sister is a freshman in college, and her roommate has an absolute psycho helicopter mom. They're both on the cross-country team and very good students. My sister said the roommate never drinks or goes out, but her mom tracks her through phone GPS and will text her constantly asking why she's at such and such place. My sister said one time they were at Walmart getting groceries, and her mom called her to ask why she was at Walmart at 9 p.m. Another time, they drove to my other sister, she lives in the same town apartment, to pick something up, and the girl's mom called and starts yelling and asking why she's been sitting in a parking lot for 20 minutes. My sister said she'll constantly have to send pictures of them at the library to her to prove they're actually studying. I just don't get that kind of smothering of your kid. I mean, if you want to check up on what they're doing, then fine. Especially if you're paying the bills. But dang, the poor girl can't even have a normal college experience and is constantly worried about upsetting her mom. It just all seems so unhealthy to me. I mean, I had friend parents who did that in high school. But once they're adults in college, you really have to cut the cord. Story 5. I worked at a small community library. A kid lived in the building across the parking lot from the library. He would leave his building, walk the 150 feet to the front door of the library, come to the desk, and use the courtesy phone to call and report to his mom that he got to the library safely. I remember the day that he didn't do this. She came flying into the library like 5 minutes later, freaking out that her son had been kidnapped, and we needed to find him. Story 6. I used to teach middle school. The teacher next to me had given a 6th grade girl a C on a paper because it didn't meet the proper criteria. Mom was livid and came into the school furious about the grade. After the teacher and mom went back and forth about the grade, the mom blurts, I have a college degree and I took writing courses for 4 years, and I wrote this paper. Are you telling me I can't get an A on a 6th grade assignment? The teacher stuck to her guns but never answered the question. Story 7. My mom. When my mom and brother came to visit me in the city I lived in at that time, and we went to a building that is a tourist attraction. She's already been there, so she stayed down in some coffee shop while me and my brother went in to go to the top. There was a really big line, and while we were waiting, he was telling me of all the times she'd go crazy because I would miss to reply to her for 1 day or so. We were joking that considering how long the whole tour of the building was taking, she'd probably already be talking to cops. When we got out there, she was talking to a cop because someone probably kidnapped 2 adults in a crowded building packed with security and tourists. Story 8. A 13-year-old kid down the street. His mom, dad, and grandma were always with him. Always, he had never been away from them, even when they have a nanny to watch him, one of them was there. The kid was never on his own for anything, and the creepiest thing I saw them do, we had them to a party in the park, and when the 13-year-old asked for a hot dog, the mom freaked out not, because it was a hot dog, Some parents have dietary restrictions because I serve them whole. She took the hot dog from his hand and cut it for him in little baby bites like I would do for my 1-year-old at the time, then handed it back to him like she saved his life. Let me get this straight. He was a normal teen with no mental impediments. The dad took him to the bathroom with a gallon of sanitizer and baby wipes and make sure the boy washed his hands. These people hold regular jobs. One is a lawyer, one admin at our local hospital, and the Grahams was an exec with the state attorney. They were from the Bay Area, which we have a lot of transplant from, but they seem to have taken it to the next level helicoptering weirdness. Story 9 worked with a woman whose 4-year-old loved airplanes. There was a big air show coming to the area, and I asked her if she was taking her son to the air show, as he would probably love it. She said she was worried they were too dangerous and a plane could crash into the crowd, so they didn't go. Great parenting. Rob your child of an incredible experience because you have an irrational fear. Story 10 back when I taught a freshman course during graduate school, I had a parent email me on behalf of her daughter. The young woman had missed half of the class, failed 2 major assignments, and had her mommy emailing me, trying to allow her to pass. When I told her about FERPA, she tried to get me in trouble with the department chair. Edit, this young lady made it into my comments before. She was the only student to try the "they'll do anything to pass" line. Story 11, I knew a kid way back in the day, wherein his parents overly supervised everything he did. Wanted to play outside? Well, it has to be in the little park that's 50 from their front door. Dad would just be staring out the windows. Any bad language, that's a paddlin'. Sarcasm, you better believe that a paddlin'. I remember one time someone had bought some Swedish fish and was sharing them with everyone. The mom comes flying out and says you can only have 1 fish, and then watch him eat a single fish and make sure he wouldn't eat any other. Now, the kid is so deep in the closet he's wrapping Christmas presents and so stressed he could turn coal into diamonds. RIP my inbox. Story 12, I had a 16-year-old coworker whose mother sat in on the interview and tried to answer all the questions for him. He quit a couple of months later, or should I say, his mother called the store to quit for him. Story 13, I am in private elementary education. So this question is right up my alley. I had a student one year who was the middle child of 3, and the mother was the textbook definition of a helicopter, but it was more than that. She also had a bad case of wanting to be your 10-year-old's best friend instead of their parent. Here is a short list of things she did. She would come attend school events like plays, etc., and try to sit next to her child on the floor, crisscross applesauce, and all she would deliver her child lunch every single day, not send in a packed lunch. Mind you, she would deliver something like fast food, especially Chick-fil-A, and she always had enough for herself as well. So she basically tried to come eat lunch with her daughter every day. One day, I confronted the student about this and made up a bogus rule that her mom had to bring me lunch as well. And sure enough, the next day, I got a sub from Subway. She would let the girl stay home for any and all reasons. The girl was literally absent 25 days a year before I had her, although I tried my best to crush that bad habit and got her down to 14 days absent when I had her. Some of the notes doctors' excuses the mom sent and were really ridiculous. When she was at the school for her younger child, for example, when she came by for kindergarten parties or whatever, she would sneak out and walk the halls and peek through the classroom windows of her other 2 kids to check on them. I would joke with our principal that this woman might secretly be an employee of our security company trying to find flaws in our security procedures. We had to come up with all sorts of new rules and procedures for all the parents to follow just to stop this one woman. The girl was not a very good student, and I'm pretty sure more than half of the homework handed into me was completed by the mother. My final interaction with her was when I invited her and her husband in for a conference because I gave the girl a 0 for missing an assignment with an unexcused absence, and I basically forced the mother to admit that she took the girl shopping that day instead of bringing her to school. The dad was completely unaware this was happening and went off on her. It didn't solve the problem permanently, as she continued to helicopter the following year before leaving the school. But tone it down while I had her at least. The sad thing is you encounter parents like this all the time. They don't realize the long-term harm they're causing their children or the bad habits they're helping them to develop. TLDR, don't helicopter. Story 14 was moving in freshmen to the dorms. If you agreed to move the newbies, you got to move in 3 days early, and beat the rush man approaches me. Is this a co-ed dorm? Yes. I asked for my daughter to be in the all-female dorm. Oh, I understand, sir. That's actually right across the breezeway. Usually it's in Building X, but X is being renovated, so they moved it here. That entire wing is only female, but she could walk over here. It would be co-ed. Well, yes, sir. She could walk anywhere she wanted it. It'll tell her she's not allowed to walk this way. I never found out who his daughter was, but I'm sure she followed those rules. Story 15, one lady we had over was shocked that my at the time 9-year-old younger brother could dress himself and brush his teeth. claiming that he was so mature and that her daughter, age 9, couldn't do anything like that. My mom immediately realized it was helicopter parenting and had a long talk with her. I hope that little girl has learned how to dress herself and do lots of other basics now. Edit, holy moly, this got a lot of attention. Thanks. Story 16 just posted this yesterday in a different thread, longish but relatively related story. To follow my dad coach my hockey team when I was 10 to 12. He was a great coach and was friends with my friends' dads and also got them to coach. So here we are in this rinky-dink town, and we're running the table on team after team because my coaches actually care about the kids. We have organized practices. We have skills we try to develop. Every day, we got better. Every game, whether it was a win or a loss, we learned something. The last year my dad coached, we had this kid on the team. His name was Chad, and he didn't want to be there. He was very overweight at 12. He probably had asthma. He lacked any sense of competitive instincts, and he was a complete introvert. The entire season, my dad focused on trying to get him to open up. He tried to get him better and tried to get him to love to play sports. By the end of the season, it was starting to work, but you can't coach asthma away just by being positive about it. So Chad's mom was at all of the games that year in every tournament. A real winner, that woman was never cheered for anyone but her son, and her son was the absolute best. 4 out-of-town tournaments, we used to have the Zamboni come on between periods. During that time, we'd be in the dressing room. Chad's mom would come in with a burger for her son to eat between periods 1 and 2. Between 2 and 3, it'd be fries and gravy. Just like all the sports stars eat, she kept track of his minutes. She brought a notepad to every game with a stopwatch and timed how long Chad's shifts were, how often he was past the puck, how many power play or penalty kill opportunities he got. The full stat package that you'd expect to get when you're 12 years old. Near the end of the season and throughout playoffs, she would accost my dad, a volunteer coach who had 2 jobs and 3 sons to take care of, and him out in the hallway. She would do this within earshot of the dressing room. She'd complain about Chad's time on the ice and show the stat sheets she had accumulated. This we all heard. Chad couldn't have shrunk any lower into his seat. We tried to pump him up, but she embarrassed him every game. Every single game she did this, until at the end of the season, she finally got her way and got my dad fired from his volunteer job. My dad, a former high school and university level coach, fired from his volunteer job because her son wasn't treated equally. I wonder sometimes how that story is spun around Chad's family. I wonder if my dad is cast as the supervillain like some shitty Disney sports movie. I wonder if Chad is always the hero, and I wonder whatever happened to him, if all that fighting and pushing by his mom ever ended, or did it just continue for life? You'll never know because he quit hockey and never came back. Meanwhile, the rest of the team, who had the best coach hockey in their young lives, lost 3 amazing coaches because of one nutcase woman. Participation trophies, they're never something a kid demands. They have everything to do with the bats-hit crazy moms and dads who are living vicariously through their poor kids. Then the asshats have the nerve to say, well, when we grew up, we didn't get participation trophies just for showing up. Well, no, you wankers. You're the morons that invented that. Story 17, I went to boarding school for high school. And when I was a senior, there was a freshman whose mother would drive 3 hours every weekend to be with her. On said weekends, her mother wouldn't take her out. She would hang out with her friends with her, to the point where I think the mother thought she was friends with her daughter's friends. Field trips, she would go band tours, she would make sure she was at every place they performed. The mother would try and assign extra homework for her to do on top of her schoolwork, which went on until a dean found out and yelled at the mom. I went to alumni this year, BFF on the alumni board, not just a loser, and I stayed at an old staff member's house. And that happened to be where the class that graduated that year was having a gathering. Lo and behold, the girl was there, and so was her mother. Story 18, I was a trustee for my college fraternity. The final week of pledging has the recruits live in the fraternity house. We have them turn over their phones for the week. On day 2 of the week, campus police come knocking on the door looking for one of the recruits. Turns out that his mother would call him every morning to wake him for class, then call again in the evening to discuss his homework schedule for the night. When she couldn't get a hold of him, she started calling local PD, then campus safety, and even the dean of students. I also have a friend that works as a recruiter for a big consulting firm. She specializes in hiring interns and co-ops. She has so many stories, including parents calling ahead of the interview to give a list of topics that make their child uncomfortable, calling after an interview for a debrief, showing up to the interview with their child, and calling mid-internship to get a status update. Story 19, my mom sets up fake Facebook accounts with other people's names like her financial advisor in order to see if she can view my FB page. I'm 38. When I was married at age 31-ish, she would reprimand me if I went places grocery store, dinner with a my friend without my husband. My mom is very independent. This is a family rumor that she denies. She somehow got through on the phone to my college's president and told him my daughter was a good Christian girl until she went to your school. I went to a Christian college, and I have no doubt that this rumor actually happened. She's definitely the type. When I was in high school, age 16-ish, I was allowed to walk 4 to 6 blocks to school. No one was ever allowed to use the telephone in the school office except in an emergency. Except me. Everyone in town knows my mom and her reputation, and they bow to her whims because they pick their battles, so I was required to call my mom every morning when I arrived at school. I had special permission to use the phone. One morning I forgot. She called the principal, who called over the intercom in my classroom, whether I was in class, because my mom was on the phone wondering if I had made it the 6 blocks to school. Throughout my 18 years living with my parents, I spent one night alone at home. I was never allowed to be alone. Even as a teenager, in the rare occasion that both parents were not home overnight, I had to have a babysitter, my mom's former best friend, who made me sleep on her neighbor's pool deck and then took photos of me in the morning as I woke up, bleary-eyed in my sleeping bag. And she had an exaggerated love of clowns. Story 20, I had a friend during college whose mom was overly concerned with her whereabouts constantly. IDs say it was borderline abuse at points, and she possibly wasn't entirely mentally well. She'd randomly come and pick my friend up while we were out, would monitor the water, gas, electricity in their house. Whenever she went away to try and see whether my friend had stayed out or had people over, her mom saw how relaxed my mom was about my life and definitely took an immediate disliking to both of us pretty early on. We once got tickets to a city music festival, the ones where loads of bars, music venues across one city hold performances during the daytime. There was only one act that I really wanted to see at the end of the night, so I spent most of the day trawling around town, drinking and seeing the acts that my friend wanted to see. I was having a good time, but was also sort of counting down the hours until I got to see the band ID really bought my ticket for. We were planning on meeting some of our other friends there and managed to organize it all before my phone really annoyingly died during the act before in another venue across town. My friend's mom obviously knew which acts we were planning on seeing and where they were. Bear in mind that we were adults and that this was during the day in what was pretty much our home city. About half an hour before we were about to leave to see the band ID, essentially waited all day for, my friend's mom called her to say that she'd checked online and saw that the final venue was overcrowded and that they were turning people away at the door, so she was coming to pick us up and take us home right away. I didn't question this and was meant to be staying with her family, so wasn't about to turn my ride home away. I was kind of disappointed that ID paid a fair bit of money to me anyway to see one of my favorite bands for the first time, and didn't even get the chance, but ID had a good day regardless, so wasn't totally bummed out. Anyway, we got back to her family's house. I grabbed my phone charger and managed to restart my phone and bring it back to life, only to have a few messages from the friends we had intended to meet at the last venue flash up all at once. Apparently, the venue was hardly full at all, and we'd missed out on a really good gig. It was super weird, but I chose not to bring it up even though I was angry about not only missing out on a good gig for no reason, but also wasting all that money. It's one thing to be a helicopter parent and control everything your kids do, but doing the same thing to your adult kids' friends is just certified crazy. Story 21, my sister was friends with this girl in middle school whose mom would put her tampons in for her because she was worried she wouldn't do it right. Tampons, not pads. Not that pads would have been normal either. Edit for everyone concerned it was abuse. My sister was at a sleepover, and before they went to bed, the girl told her mom she needed her tampon changed. So the whole thing was just really bizarre all around. Story 22, back in the 90s, this popular girl in grade 5, or so, would get dropped by her mom to school and picked up. That's normal. But several times a week, her mom would drive by really slow at recess and park on a gravel road about 200 m away from the playground and just sit there and watch. I'm guessing her mom didn't have a job or something. It was super creepy. This girl would also get constant phone calls from her mom at the office because this was before cell phones, several times a week. I have no clue what her deal is. Story 23, I was going to move into a dorm with a friend, but her mother contacted administration and insisted that she live in the same residence as the dorm minder to make sure she was doing her homework and staying away from alcohol. We were 20. The legal drinking age here is 18. Her mother would also show up after seminars to walk her home 10 minutes away and would contact professors to negotiate extensions and protest bad grades. I found out afterwards that she had a pretty serious history of mental illness, so there were legitimate reasons to be concerned for her safety. Still, I couldn't help but think a lot of her problems resulted from being told over and over again that she couldn't be trusted to stand on her own 2 feet. Story 24, my brother was injured in a training accident in the Israeli army. It wasn't life-threatening, but it was a pretty messy injury that needed immediate care. For some reason, the base commander tried to hide the injury and refused to send my brother to the hospital. Instead, he sent him to the camp medic, who took one look at my brother and said, "Here, have some morphine, and holy God, I'm going to call for help." My brother asked him to call my mom. My mom, a military police colonel at the time, commandeered a helicopter along with a squad of MPs. She then flew up into Lebanon, where my brother was based, landed in the middle of his base, ordered her way into the medical tent, while setting the MPs outside as guards, loaded my brother into the chopper, and evac'd him out. To be fair, she's a great mom who usually lets us fail on our own. But you ask for helicopter parenting examples, and it doesn't get more helicopter parent than actually commandeering a helicopter to go take care of your son. Story 25. On more than one occasion, I've told mom sorry to be, but it's never been dads in my experience that they're going to need to wait in the lobby while I interview their child for the job. If your kid is 18, they're legally an adult, and therefore you have no right whatsoever to be present in that interview. 30 of moms would try to intimidate me, as if I were their child or husband, but would back down when they saw I didn't care. 60 threw temper tantrums that cost their child the job. 10 tried to have me fired. FAQ. I was a supervisor in warehouses, distribution centers, commissary plants. Story 26. My girlfriend's mother. My girlfriend is 22 in a few months. She keeps track of my GFS bank account and credit card purchases. She also keeps track of my GFS cell phone call logs and asks her why she's having long phone calls with this phone number, which is obviously mine. I guess it doesn't help that my girlfriend and I have been secretly dating for about a year and a half. Story 27. As a kid, my sister had a friend and went over to her house quite a bit to hang out with her. The friend lived in a very nice, quiet neighborhood. After a day of hanging with her friend at her house, my sister told me that her friend's parents had placed cameras in her room. The camera was also equipped with a microphone to not only hear what was going on in her room, but also to speak to the child. My sister told stories after coming home about the mom calling into the room to sometimes tell them to stop doing an activity or to be a little more quiet. This woman was watching their every move and listening to their every conversation. I feel bad for the girl. Honestly, to me that's a huge invasion of privacy, as well as it is extremely creepy in general. If it were me, I'd throw every camera installed in the room straight out the window, or at the mom, whichever. Story 28. I have a friend whose parents makes them drive an hour back to their house from her university 4 times a week to keep an eye on her. But the worst part is, she's also working 3 jobs, the president of a club, and is taking the hardest class of her major this quarter. Story 29. My mother got me kicked out of the Army after learning I was going into a role where I might see combat. Cavalry Scout 19D. She contacted 2 senators, worked her way through the chain of command until she got to my CO, and apparently pissed off my CO to the point where I received special attention. I spent 3 months in the reception battalion first stop before boot camp in a Los Vest line of sight, was pink with reflective tape, and generally reserved for flight risks and suicidal people. After a 15-minute visit with one of the psychologists, I was deemed to have major depressive disorder and received an entry-level separation discharge. On the last day, my CO went through my paperwork, found my DD-214, and ripped it up so I couldn't re-enter the military. I come from a family who served continuously in the military for 5 generations until me. I was 18 at the time. Bonus my graduation date had I successfully completed boot camp was September 13, 2001. Story 30. The kids next door are not allowed to play outside unsupervised by an adult. We live in a quiet neighborhood, and they are aged 10 and 8. And it is worrisome how many people are replying to me with variants of that's not unreasonable. Good God, these days a 10-year-old can't play outside unsupervised. Story 31. That thing where parents put trackers on their teen cell phones or in their cars so they can monitor every single place they go at all times. Yes, teach your teen that being under constant surveillance from authorities is good and normal. And fail to model healthy, trusting relationships by teaching them that no matter what, you cannot trust them. There are 2 outcomes of this, and they're both awful. 1, your teen learns how to lie really well, or 2, your teen internalizes that they are untrustworthy, and, as an adult, surveillance from authority figures, e.g., police, government, corporate entities, is not only normal, but desirable for them to feel safe. Story 32. Kid came to swim team tryouts, was having a meltdown, and refused to get in the water. Mom got in the pool fully clothed to try and coax kid into the pool. Story 33. Mine. Keeping it short because I'm typing this at work. It'll go into detail with an edit when I get home. I was 20 years old and still not allowed out of the house without my mom, and I had to hold hands crossing the street. I never had a job, never learned to cook, all because I was, in her words, going to live with her forever. I got a boyfriend, even though I'd never been allowed to visit anyone's house. Ever, she asked to see his SS and birth certificate to prove he was the age he said he was. I told her I wanted to move out, and she freaked, called police, and told them I was mentally unstable. told them I wasn't ready for the outside world. The police believe her, and it took me a full year to actually escape. I even had relatives parked outside at night to make sure I didn't leave. I'm now 23 and slowly adjusting to the world, but it's hard. I can cook, but driving is hard. I have no social skills. I don't know how to talk to people, and she still asks me to come home every day via text. Story 34. I was at the playground with my 2-year-old son last spring. It was a beautiful April afternoon, 63 degrees, winds east at 5 knots, visibility 6 miles, clouds broken at 2,000 feet with overcast layer at 11,000 feet. Suddenly, this mom swoops in with her bell 206 and transitions to a hover at just 50 AGL. No overfly to the LZ. She came in like she was taking fire from VCs and was cowgirling her evac mission. Before I could react, a line unravels from the back door and 2 little shits fast rope on the jungle gym, no helmets. Just like that, she ramped the turbine, pulled the collective, and whizzed out of there like she was late for her 3 o'clock cocktail. I checked later. The lady didn't even file her flight plan properly. By far, the worst case of helicopter parenting I've ever seen. Story 35. My cousin wasn't allowed to watch Arthur on PBS. I don't even remember why. But let's be real, there's no way there's a logical reason for that. She couldn't watch most of Disney Channel because the kids are kind of snotty to their parents at times. I can agree with that analysis, but usually they learn a lesson about it, right? I watched it and wasn't into my parents' haha. She couldn't listen to any secular music until she was about 15 to 16, and even then they were very restrictive about it. When she was an infant, her mom objected to baby pictures that showed the baby's butt or nipples if it's a female baby in case some pedophile somehow got his hands on it. How does that work? She had a celebrity crush on Josh Hutcherson when she was like 11, 12, but apparently at some point he said something that indicated he was, and that was the end of that. And just for good measure, whenever I visited, she would parent me too. I remember she forced me to take medicine when I was feeling a little under the weather, forced me to do chores I didn't normally do at home, and told me I needed to be better at dishwashing if I want to make a good wife someday. LMAO told me I worked hard to be educated, see previous wife comment, etc. Good times, LMAO. Story 36. A guy I know is 23. He has 2 moms, adopted. I'm not sure which mom is worse. One of them runs all his social media accounts. We would get messages from him that just sounded weird. When asked, he would have no idea what he said. He has a cell phone that can only call his parents and 911. Not allowed to drive. Anytime he goes somewhere new, his mom tags along for a few hours to check things out. He's only allowed to eat at certain restaurants. Has to check in with his moms constantly. He doesn't see any issue with this. I almost think it's a form of abuse. He is not an independent thinker. He relies on everyone else to make decisions for him. Smart kid too. Story 37. How about this? Seriously, I know a girl about to turn 30 who just complained that her mom won't let her buy a new phone. She frequently fusses about things like her parents won't let her read Harry Potter, etc. This is a person who lives on their own. Boggle. Story 38. There was a girl whose mom would not allow her to attend social events without the mom for fear of the child encountering a bad influence. I remember she was invited to a sleepover and the mom, at the last second 9, like literally at the front door of the house the sleepover was at, said she couldn't go because the parents of the other child had not been impressed when informed that it was mandatory that they accommodate a grown woman as well as a group of 8-year-olds when no such provision had been discussed beforehand when RSVPing. Story 39. I took the ACT this December for my 2nd time. ID made a 30 last time, and I wanted to see if I could improve or not. So I'm standing in line waiting to be checked in, and I see this lady looking to be about 35 come in, and she has this rolling suitcase saying, "It's okay to be a little crazy." I didn't know how true that saying was at the time. I thought she was one of the testing people who like supervise and hand the tests out. No, she was not. She came with her, I'm guessing, middle school or freshman child who wore a hoodie the whole time and didn't bring a pencil to the test, who looked very young to take this test. We are all in line, and she starts cutting in line. So her boy could be up ahead saying it was his first time cut her a break, and she was an adult, etc. She kept on moving up the line till she got to these big black football players. They had their school's Letterman jacket on and stayed where she was getting glares from the rest of the line. I get in the classroom, take it at the community college in town, and I look out the door to see the lady arguing with the test ladies, saying she has every right to be in there with her son to make sure he is all right, and she would call the ACT company blah blah blah. They won't let her in. She decides to sit outside for the 4-hour test and wait for him. She brought blankets and snacks, and during the break, she kept telling everyone how her smart boy was taking the ACT for the first time and how he was going to score higher than all of us. This lady added more confusion to this already confusing day. Edit formatting for you, former Baron, and you, Bratman.